Hi, it's the 31st of August 2017 and, as you'll be well aware, it's the 20th anniversary of the death of Diana Spencer and Dodi Al-Fayed. I'll just start here by saying that their deaths were of course a terrible tragedy, and that I was quite shocked and felt sorry for them and their families at the time. But there have always been some assumptions about her death which have struck me as enormous elephants in the room. The first is, she was escaping the paparazzi. Of course, the lasting image is of her car barreling away from the tabloid photographers as her drunken driver, Henri Paul, loses control as they enter the Pont de l'Arme tunnel in Paris. Yes, but what would these photographers have done if they'd caught up with her? Kidnap her? Molest her? Dash her body against a concrete pillar maybe? Or maybe they would photograph her. But she was the most photographed person on the planet, and as she hadn't exactly retired from public life, being photographed was surely simply an occupational inconvenience. Okay, she wanted some privacy, but if she wanted it that badly, why not adopt an easy disguise and enjoy a romantic dinner with her fresh lover in a cosy little place in the Parisian suburbs, rather than at the Hotel Ritz in the centre of Paris, a place famously owned by Dodi's dad, on a summer's Sunday evening, leaving in a shiny black limo. Another huge elephant in the room is that Henri Paul's drunk and reckless driving caused the accident. After all, the speed limit in the tunnel was 30 miles per hour, and he was easily going 65, which is about 105 kilometers per hour, and his alcohol level was 3 times over the limit. Even the inquiry concluded that this and the pursuit of the press were the causes of Diana's death. Well, these certainly had much to do with it, but is it really the full story? Did Henri Paul really drive at a high speed against Al-Fayed's expressed wishes? Or was Diana really screaming and swinging her hand back at him to slow down? Or perhaps Henri Paul was just doing his job by airily giving the press the brush off, and his 007 driving would have been a perfect end to such a glamorous evening. If only for that niggly narrow tunnel. Diana, Princess of Wales, not only enjoyed the highest wealth, status, fame and privilege the world could offer, but more than anyone else, actually embodied these values. The biggest elephant in the room is that Diana has, as far as I know, only ever been depicted as the poor, witless victim, hounded by the press, driven by a drunk. But eating in a high-profile restaurant in central Paris and permitting herself to be driven by a man who'd only just been enjoying a few drinks while he was off duty before being hauled in again to drive his boss and the most famous woman on the planet, does turn the spotlight of at least some responsibility on the woman herself. Keep in mind that nobody in this car, I mean nobody, was wearing a seatbelt, including her. And we can only begin to guess if it was, in fact, merely normal for her and people like her to speed recklessly around the world's cities escaping the press without a seatbelt. And here's a thought. But for the grace of God were they the only fatalities. Over the years I've seen Stephen Frears' film The Queen many times, and with each viewing I sympathise more and more with the Queen's reluctance to turn Diana's death into an immense media and public event. And does anyone now remember the tabloids and public's initial reactions to her relationship with Dodi Al-Fayed? The shame of it. How dare she, the mother of the future King of England, debasing herself with this towelhead, this desert fly, son of a cash for questions scandalmonger. And then their sudden change of tune when she died only weeks later. The nation mourns the loss of their people's princess. We miss you, Diana. Do me a favour. So in August 1997, it felt to me as though I was the only person in Britain who didn't care, or perhaps I was going mad or even psychopathic. But the acre of rotting flowers in front of Buckingham Palace, or grown men and women openly weeping in the streets, clearly calls to mind the similarly surreal reaction of the North Koreans to the death of Kim Jong-il. Maybe my own humble Irish Republican Catholic background distanced me from feeling grief for this rich English Anglican Sloane I'd never met or could ever identify with. Okay, she did a lot for charity, but name a major royal who doesn't. And she was very pretty and fashionable. Ah, now there's the rub. The British public's reaction to Diana's death was my first inkling that there was something deeply dim, knee-jerked and emotionally crippled about them, and Brexit and their recent election of a Machiavellian reptile simply reconfirms this herd mentality. Hopefully, younger generations who've no real memory of Diana and are more inclined to a united Europe and compassionate form of government will emerge with a more discerning attitude to media influence in future. But for now, how happy I am to now live in Germany, an egalitarian republic in the heart of Europe. And when I ask Germans if they grieved Diana 20 years ago, they usually stare at me baffled and ask, "Warum?"